The simulation I chose for this activity was a phet simulation targeted at gene expression. I think this would be a great activity to do in a heredity unit or something along those lines. I will say this activity does go beyond the basic knowledge of genes, so it would be best for a high school class rather than a middle school or an elementary school. So the simulation gives students the ability to build three different proteins. It provides a biomolecule toolbox, right there, that is full of the components necessary to build that gene. As a student selects each molecule, the simulation helps guide them where to place it on the track of building a protein. So for gene 1, it showed students that positive transcription factor plus RNA polymerase made messenger RNA. After the mRNA was created, students were directed to add a ribosome, which then created the square protein. There are other molecules in the toolbox that also help students understand the full picture of the protein building. Gene number 2 was built relatively similar to gene 1, except that it needed one more positive transcription factor to make the mRNA. Once the student added the ribosome, the protein shaped like a hexagon was created. The gene itself looked slightly different than the first one, so it helped students to realize that not every gene creates the same protein in the same way. Gene number 3 was built with the same factors as gene number 2. However, when the ribosome was added, a cylindrical protein was created. I think this helps students to again understand that each protein serves a different function and can therefore have various structures. I think this simulation would be really good for students in the heredity unit. It allows them to analyze three different protein structures, and beyond this, by having each protein be a different shape, I think it shows them that structure and function are highly related when it comes to protein building and gene expression. The size and shapes of the genes vary throughout the simulation, which I think is important in showing the student how that can also affect the size and shape of the protein. This simulation provides a great visual activity for students to actually build the proteins. I think a lot of times in anatomy and physiology and even in basic science classes, it can be difficult for some students to grasp concepts because of the lack of visual resources. We obviously can't see the protein synthesis in our own bodies with the naked eye, so providing students with some sort of visual is super helpful for their learning. I think it also allows students to see the different components and how they may differ for various genes. So having this sort of unique shape and structure allow each protein and gene to provide an individual function. I think this would be a really great review activity for students once the material has been introduced. Like I mentioned earlier, it could be kind of confusing for students if they don't have the background knowledge of the subject, so that is important for educators to remember. I think this could also be super helpful for struggling students. Like I mentioned before, it can be hard sometimes to understand these concepts, so providing a visual could be really beneficial for students that may be struggling. Overall, I think this is a really good simulation for high school anatomy or science class, and I think it could actually be really fun for students.